Alright, so for today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Klein Tools 32500 HD RT Ratcheting Impact Rated Screwdriver. Now, I did take a look at the previous version of this tool on the channel, I would say maybe a year or two ago. It's basically just an impact rated screwdriver, but the only thing that is different from that one and this one is this one has a ratcheting feature on it. So if you haven't seen that tool or you haven't checked that tool out, you go ahead and check it out here. It's going to be almost the exact same tool. Like I said, the only difference between this tool and the older tool is this one has the ratcheting feature on it. So like most Klein screwdrivers that have that nice rubber overmolding over the plastic, which I really do like that feel in my hand. That is just a personal preference. And you got the Klein Tools name right there. And then you go ahead and spin this guy around and you have your model number. And you have some safety warnings right there you can go ahead and look at. And then coming to the top, which I do like that Klein did change this up a little bit. They do have the identifier there on the screwdriver handle, so if you had this sticking in your tool bag with a bunch of other screwdrivers or whatever, you could easily pick out that this is your Impact 11-in-1 or your Ratcheting Impact 11-in-1. And I do like, instead of putting that white paint that Klein normally puts on the tops of the screwdrivers, they kind of did this in yellow, so you could easily tell it apart from the rest. And now coming down to the business end of the tool, here is your ratcheting mechanism. Now I currently have it locked right now, but you can twist it up and it will ratchet to tighten, or you can twist it down and it'll ratchet to loosen, whatever kind of fastener you are trying to either loosen or tighten. So that is I would say a nice feature for this tool. But I think the main focus on this tool is going to be its bits itself. Now this, unlike most 11-in-1s that only have maybe, just a quarter, 5/16 on them, this one also features a 3/8. Now your 3/8 and your 5/16 are your deeper sockets. So if you had some longer fasteners, or if you maybe were shooting up some bolts onto some threaded rod or whatever, they are a little bit deeper in length. So over here is your 5/16. Now these do pop out of the handle of the screwdriver. So if you wanted to insert these into your impact driver, you can. Now I have heard of some people putting these in their impact driver and they've either broken the socket or they've broken bits or this bit holder. So that is something that you are going to want to watch out for. And this guy pops out of the socket. And there is just your standard 5/16 socket. I don't really have anything long that would go in there. Pretty much all I use that is 5/16 are just, standard 3/4 self-tappers, maybe some 1-inch self-tapping screws. So this 3/8 or this 5/8 socket or nut driver for me, that would pretty much be all I would use it for. Now you do have some bits right here. This is going to be your Phillips bit. So you got your Phillips number 1 and your Phillips number 2. And then this is going to be your slotted, your square bits, square 1 and square 2. Not something I run into a lot of. I have run into a couple of square, like screws that people have hung ductwork with, or have built framing around some of our ductwork to go through a wall. I have run into some squares, but most of the time it is a Torx style of screw. So you can just insert that guy right back into the screwdriver and then pull it out, and you now have your 3/8. And this is where it features. The square, you're not square, but you're slotted. It's going to be a 3/16 and a 1/4 inch. And then you also do get a Torx bit here. I think this is the T20 or T25, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's a T25. It isn't labeled, but I kind of forget what it was. But you do get a Torx bit, and then you also have a bit holder right here. So if you wanted to put a different bit or something into the screwdriver, this is where you could do it. So that is a nice little feature. Now this isn't going to be clipping into your impact unless you are using it with this socket. So if you had a different bit and you wanted to use the socket, again, you just pull that bit out and you can insert your, your 1/4 inch bit there. and you should be ready to rock and roll. Now this 3/8 socket is something that I use quite a bit. I don't use this one. I do use a version of this one. Now this is an older Klein bit, which I believe is now discontinued. And I think Klein discontinued it because they wanted to replace it with this socket right here. But this is just a 3/8 socket that also features, a bit holder and things like that. But the main reason I use that 3/8 socket, I use these on when we're doing, large ductworks and we have dampers that we're putting in them. Generally, we have these little horseshoe clamps that go over our rod, and to tighten the 3/8 washers on the side, you generally need a socket, or you can go in there with a ratcheting wrench or whatever. But generally, I just like to use, I have one of these sockets in my work bag. I do have 2 of these. This is my second one. I do have one of these sockets in there, and I just kind of, tighten up those little C-clamps, or the fasteners on the back of those C-clamps with these, and it works great. So I think this was to be replaced by this, if I'm not mistaken, and it's pretty much the same exact design, just the socket's a little bit shorter in length. So that is that. So it's a pretty cool little screwdriver from Klein Tools. Like I said, it's got that ratcheting feature there on there. And you can also insert these bits into your impact driver. And like I've said, some of the complaints that I've seen about these is they tend to either break the socket or they're breaking bits in the socket when using it with an impact driver. So that is something that you are going to want to look out for. Now, personally, I haven't tested these out on an impact driver, and I'm not doing anything crazy with an impact driver to go ahead and snap these bits off, but everybody's different. I'm just a heating and cooling guy. I use an impact driver, but it's mainly to drive in 1/4, 5/16, maybe an occasional 3/8 screw. Don't really use, Phillips and Torx and things like that on a daily basis. I will if I have to, if I'm framing something out or whatever, but I generally don't use those on a daily basis. But now kind of getting off track, and we're supposed to be focusing here on the tool. Now, like I said, the previous version that we took a look at here on the channel, it's pretty much the exact same tool. The only difference that I see is this one has a ratcheting feature and the other one doesn't. Other than that, the tool is pretty much the same. So if you're looking at both of these tools and you can't decide which one you want to buy, it's going to come down to, do you want it to ratchet, or do you just want it to be a normal tool? So that is going to be, a decision maker for some people. Personally, to me, it doesn't really matter. I'm not really the biggest fan of ratcheting screwdrivers. I just pick, a few up here and there. But I generally don't use the ratcheting feature. Because most of the time, if I'm going to use a screwdriver with a ratcheting feature, I might as well just use my drill and take out the screw or the fastener that way. I just generally use screwdrivers when I'm doing electrical or some low voltage, or maybe I'm mounting a thermostat and I'm kind of screwing it into the anchors on the wall and I don't want to get too crazy with the drill. That's about the only time I'll use, a screwdriver. Other than that, I'd use either the nut driver on my impact or something else. So with that being said, that's kind of all I've got for this video. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.